Good morning. This is News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa, a Fat Cat production. Today is February 22nd, 2025. This is episode 36. If it's not episode 36, the right episode will be up here, but I'm pretty sure it's 36. Today, we will be reporting on ruling by the government on USAID and what's going on over there. Second item will be Kash, Patel's relocation of agent assets around the nation. Some legal wins for President Trump on the executive orders, and some ones that are headed to the robes. I have an opinion article that I'd like to share with you on the SAVE Act, for which is voting, and people have problems with that. Well, some people. A lot of news in the financial section about gold being transported back to the United States because some conspirators are saying to replenish Fort Knox, which has been emptied out. I disagree with that, but, well, who am I? And then, of course, the Mayor Adams case, which is going on and still is in the news and will be in the news. So let's get started. This is from ABC, February 21st. Their article headlines taking from, I hate Yahoo News, but a judge dissolves order preventing Trump administration from overhauling USAID. So this sounds like in the beginning you go, oh, Trump lost the case, but it's not. It's the opposite. And they use the word dissolve. So a federal judge on Friday moved to dissolve a temporary restraining order preventing the Trump administration from hollowing out. They use the terms hollowing out. It's not hollowing out. It is overhauling. So this is the international development plan, where all the money goes, to wherever it was going. And this allows the president now to, as they say, pursue its plan to place thousands of foreign aid employees on administrative leave. Yeah. It's not to pursue a plan, but to continue the policies that Trump is putting forward. So you can see how how articles can be written to point in a whole different direction than they are. Their facts are absolutely correct, but it's how they spin those words. And this court case again was brought on by the unions. Found the two unions representing thousands of foreign service officers had failed to demonstrate how personnel changes at USAID would cause them irreparable harm. The legal standard for a preliminary injunction. So the court is saying, all right, they're doing personnel changes. Show me how that affects you. You can't. So the term, so really what they did was lift the order that was preventing them, or strike down the order, not dissolve. Nothing gets dissolved. It either goes forward or it's yanked. And in this case, it was yanked, and as it should be. So it should be actually to continue the policies of the current administration. just more slanted news reporting and word soup for the uninformed. That's coming from me. And this is what happens when you take a news article and you throw it up there and just change the bylines a bit and skew it towards, people go, oh my God, what is he doing? That's terrible, those poor people. Well, that's not the case. Trump has the authority to do it, and he's doing it, folks. And I told you that this was one that the unions just can't win. There's no teeth in it, and they're just, throwing the ball long here, hoping someone catches it on the other side, and that it's not intercepted. Well, they are proverbially beating a dead horse here. Trump can go in there and he can put people on indefinite leave. Now, these people are getting paid, the ones that are on indefinite leave. Anyone that he could fire outright, he has the right to do that. And regardless of a contract, the government can cancel any contract that they hold, just about for any reason, including convenience. So I think that in this case, it's not being arbitrary or capricious, meaning that you just can't go, I want all the people that weigh 180 pounds or more out, and all the people that weigh less than 105 pounds out. Because I just don't like that, or that's my criteria. That's being arbitrary and capricious. So you can't do that. That would get in a lot of legal terms. Here he's just saying, I can let people go under probationary rules. I don't need a reason. I can cite a reason, and the report that I have, the last report said you were deficient, and out you go. Or we just don't need you anymore. We're sizing down, and good luck to you in your future endeavors. How many of us have heard that stuff? I know, working in the industry, which was the defense industry, you lose contracts. You knew you're already putting resumes out and going out and job shopping. So, not a big deal. This was one that we knew, or that I knew right from the beginning he could do. So, now, second article from AP News as of February 21st. A little side note here. I don't know why I still keep thinking it's January. And it's going to be March soon. And I keep typing up everything with a January date. So, don't know why. I hope it's not what my dad had. But Dad, if it is, I'm coming soon. Kash Patel plans to move up to 1,500 workers out of the Washington, D.C. Bureau, which is their main headquarters. And has told senior officials that he plans to relocate up to 1,000 employees from Washington to field offices around the country and move an additional 500 to large bureau facilities in Huntsville, Alabama. And this is according to a person with knowledge of the discussion. Again, with knowledge of the discussion. The plan was communicated Friday, the same day that Kash Patel was sworn in. And what he's doing is to keep the reducing the size of the footprint of the FBI in Washington and moving the agents out to where they could be strategically located. They must have some reason some numbers that they're doing this. And Director Patel has made clear his promise to the American public that the FBI agents will be in communities focused on combating violent crime. Now, I find it interesting that the FBI needs to go into these areas. Um, what's going on with the local police that they can't police? The FBI normally, 99% of the time, only gets really involved when there's a federal matter uh, that they get involved with. So, is the violent crime, gun crimes, gangs, illegal gangs? You can have a gang that's legal. You just can't have a gang that is there to do illegal things. You could have a group, and you can call it a gang, uh, a motorcycle club that rides. That's all they do. They ride. They do charities. They don't do anything else. Um, could be labeled a gang, but the gang is not the gang that you think of. So we have to be careful with that, and the news will definitely use words that might not fit the true description of what's going on. You hear gangs, and the minute you think of is uh, you know, uh, violence, and that might not be the case. But if you hear the word Crips, gangs, uh, uh, some motorcycle gangs, uh, you then think of violence, and illegal Venezuelan gang members, MS-13 gang members. You automatically think of illegal activities, but you look at our gang comedies, and that's not anything going on that's bad. So, Kash Patel moving ahead with his plans to reorganize the structure of the FBI and put it more out into the public's eye, and a means to regain the trust of the American people. Now, I've said this anytime I've spoke about the FBI. Um, the FBI is always weaponized. And I say this because under the conditions of the FBI, they act independently of the White House. Um, so they're an agency inside an agency that does not take its orders from the White House. They work through the Department of Justice, and it's a whole different field. But people go back now. It's going to be back to the J. Edgar Hoover days, and it's always been the J. Edgar Hoover days at the FBI, because they were the keeper of the secrets. And I keep saying that. I call it the keeper of the secrets. They're the ones that can spy on Americans. So if there's any dirt that's out there, and it might not be illegal dirt. Hey, you're married, and as a matter of security, you've been followed, and we kept seeing you go to this establishment that the police are saying is, house of prostitution, and you keep going there. So now, we have to make sure that no secrets are being divulged. You're not kissing and telling. You haven't done anything that we know of is illegal, because we haven't seen money crossed hands or anything like that yet. And we say yet. So they just might say, hey, you might want to watch yourself, because if we could find that out, so could other people. So you might not want to do that. Now we're going to report this up to whoever you're reporting to, and we go from there. You came on our radar. But understand that normally the FBI, 98% of the people are not on their radar. And even if you do flash on their radar for a second, it might just be something very innocently. You know, you went out of the country and you declared that you took, you know, $10,000 in cash with you. And they might, you know, go to the Treasury Department, and this might go then to the FBI. Might want to just take a look at it, and you know, go, oh yeah, he has family over there. He dropped money off. It's allowed. You declared it. You can take up to $10,000 out of the country. Normally, anything more than that, you have to declare it. But if you declared it beforehand, because I just don't want to get jammed up with, they find 8,500 on me and they want to make sure I don't have another 1,500 tucked in my shoe. So you get jammed up and you report it, and they go, okay, you reported it. Now if we want to look, but we're not, because it's $10,000, but thank you. When you come back, you have to declare how much money you got. If you got only $4,000, and but you could show you paid bills, you gave some to gifts, you gave, you know, to your nephew, whatever, that's fine. They don't care about that. But for a moment, you'll flash on their radar. But if you're doing stuff that you're not supposed to be doing, you can bet your bottom dollar you're on their radar. So that's what's going on with Kash Patel. The third item was Trump scores big legal wins. This is reported by NBC News as of February 22nd. So he scores some big legal wins, but his efforts to reshape the government still take hurdles. Yes. Among his victories was, as they call it, his firing spree. It's reorganization, which includes downsizing. And again, they use firing spree, like he's just running through there and decimating, which in essence he's doing, but it's called downsizing. So, you know, does it have the same impact? Firing spree? Yes. Is it the word that, you know, a company would use? No, we're downsizing. And in downsizing, we eliminate some positions, consolidate others. You know, so it's not a big deal. And, you know, among the victories in dozens of cases filed against the administration, Donald Trump took office, including judge denying restraining orders in a pair of cases brought against Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. The ones that I said he, you know, the big one is, of course, the 14th Amendment birthright. That's a biggie. These other ones, some of them will go back and forth to a court and then go up the step to the next court and then boom, boom. And if it's required, then it goes to, if it's deemed necessary, or it goes to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court can look at it and go, we're not even going to look at it. Nope. Or we're going to send it back to the lower courts because we feel they got their answer wrong. And that's why we're doing this thing. Goodbye to my granddaughter. So that's the NBC acknowledging that Trump has had legal wins. That must really hurt them. NBC and MSNBC are probably the worst offenders of news without any view. It's just their view. And they don't even try to hide it. They do not even try to hide what they're doing. And I give them credit with that. They make no bones about distorting and bending and not breaking, but some of it's just outright wrong. Uh, but one of the things that I was laughing at was the AP, and I wanted to go and do that today, and we're going to keep this down to an hour. But the AP, Associated Press, has filed suit against the Trump administration for locking them out of Mar-a-Lago and Air Force One and the White House press room. And because the AP refuses to use the language that Trump used in describing the Gulf of America. Now, I'm almost certain the AP is Mexican owned. The guy that owns AP, Associated Press, is Mexican. So I could see their little slant on that. But, and they're saying that that's a First Amendment right issue. And it's not a First Amendment right issue. You have freedom of speech, and you could exercise that freedom of speech. But you can't use that as an excuse to say your access has been denied. Your access to the president is denied because it's not. They are still allowed to come on White House property, ask the president's questions as he's walking. Any place outside the White House, they have access to the president. Their pool has access to the president, and the pool of people. If you sometimes they might say for security reasons or just we can only get 3 of the news organizations in there, and they pick it out of the hat. And usually it's one of the big 3 or big 5, and the rest all would take feeds. They'll do pool feeds from the source, and then have their own commentators there behind the scene, but not actually, on site. That happens all the time. But where the AP is saying that they're being denied their freedom of speech, no, you can say whatever you want to say. No one is stopping the Associated Press from saying whatever they want to say. But the president, the First Amendment does not guarantee press access. And the president has the right to say, I do not want this news organization in here. Now, Trump really has never did that. I mean, you look at what Jim Acosta used to do with Trump, and Trump didn't bar him. He could have. He could have barred him. He could have said, I don't want this guy here. No, you lose your right to come in here. But he didn't. But he's taking a different stance with the Associated Press. So, he took a little different stance with CNN. But that was all right, and so this is all right. He can do that. You are not guaranteed access to the president. Sorry. Yeah, that has nothing to do with freedom of speech. So we're going to get back to this legal thing, though. Trump has won a lot of his cases. His executive orders have, nothing to fight about. He can do it. Some of them not. And like I said, he'll get 80%, and the other 20% will go in there. But I'm going to just keep saying this. I think the American people are going to be very upset, and it's going to be more than 50% of the people are going to be upset with how the Supreme Court rules. If they rule. If they're forced to rule on it, they will rule on it. And I think more than 50% of the people in America will be upset with that ruling, because the ruling will side with Trump that 2 wrongs don't make a right. And if you're born here of people that are not documented, which means you are here illegally, the fruits of your labor are not protected. And it just goes to like if I took $1 million from a business and took it to Las Vegas and found someone that would allow me to take all that money and put it on red on a roulette wheel. And red comes up, and I get that $1 million back and another $1 million. And I go that back to the company and go, here's your $1 million. I stole this from you, but I'm returning it. You still committed a crime. And the government will take that other $1 million because you can't profit from a crime. And that is how the Supreme Court will look at this. And that will be the argument of the U.S. Prosecutor who goes in and goes, they profit by breaking the law by having their children get all the benefits of a citizens, and then argue the fact that since their children are here, they have to stay. No. You can't steal a car because you want to take your children to school in a car and then say, well, I get to keep the car because I needed it for the children to go to school. Doesn't work that way, folks. And a lot of people are going to be in a big surprise when the arguments are made, and the arguments are going to be safe arguments and very exact. Like I said, this is an issue of two wrongs don't make a right. And the 6 justices are going to agree with that. You might have 3 of the justices going, no, it's a wrong example. Is it a crime? Yes. Is it 2 people committing the crime? Yes. Have they created a third party from that illegal activity? Yes. Well, end of story. All right. Get off that real quick because that one's going to cause a lot of problems, mostly for my buddy who keeps sending me messages out of New York. Bob, I love you. I'm a guy who's okay with saying I can love another guy, and I do love Bob. All right. In the USA Today, there was an opinion, and this was taken, I'm almost certain, from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Saturday, February 22nd, and I should have wrote her name, Kristin Brey, Brey. And she wrote, married women could face new obstacles to vote. This is what conservatives want. Now, I'm a conservative, and I say women should have the right to vote. I'm pretty sure it's the 22nd Amendment. Is it 22nd? I wish I could remember these things. But we are talking about the SAVE Act being introduced for possible legislation. And she writes, despite a lifetime of having my last name pronounced incorrectly, I'm in the minority of heterosexual women who choose to keep their maiden name when I got married. All right. Why that even needs to be mentioned, it has nothing to do with voting. It's just her saying her name was mispronounced, but she elects to keep her last name. All right. I don't see how that ties into this case. I mean, honestly, I do not. And she goes, I'm not a feminist, but by the time I got into my mid 30s and had started a career, there was no need for me to start a new identity. My husband didn't care one way or another. So I saved myself from the painstaking paperwork of changing my last name. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Marriage. That is a legal contract that has legal consequences. So, changing your last name might not sound like a big deal, but you have gone on record as being married and you have elected not to change your last name. But you are married. So, and I said that the act is a contract. People understand that, right? There are many legal reasons why you change your name after marriage. And you can argue that shouldn't be, and that takes away my identity. You can make all those arguments. But our government agencies have their rules on how they handle a name change. And what she says, what I did not realize was that I might have also saved myself from being disenfranchised if she had changed her name. Now, you are not disenfranchised. This is hysteria. You can take your birth certificate and your marriage certificate and go to a voter registration and go, my license, which she must have changed to her married name, is different from her voter registration card. And she has to change that. And that happens. So, you're not disenfranchised. And would you have not changed your driver's license to your married name? Might not have been a problem, but you did. So you did half the process and didn't continue the whole process. So the SAVE Act would require Americans to provide a birth certificate, passport, or some other gold-tier citizenship document every time they register to vote. Now, normally you only register to vote once. Unless you move, and then you have to do it again. I moved from New York to South Carolina. When I went to the Department of Motor Vehicle, they had a little form I could fill out. Boom, 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 boom. I had to bring my birth certificate to motor vehicle, a statement from Social Security to say that I am who I say I am too, a piece of U.S. mail that had my current address on it, and a statement from the county showing I owned my property. Or you bring in a lease or some other document like the mail that could prove that that is your residency. They don't care if you own, rent, or squat. They just want to know that's where you live. So, very simple to do. Pain in the butt to get all that paperwork together, and I agree. I went through that in New York, but it's not reciprocal in South Carolina. I have to provide all that information again. And when I went to Social Security, I had to bring my marriage certificate. Honestly. They wanted to see my wife's and I marriage certificate before they would give us our information as a couple. So, I thought that was odd, but that's what it did. So, her problem was, and is, that up to 69 million American women whose legal name does not match their birth certificate could run into a problem when voting. Yeah, it could. It depends on what your state says and requires. So, I know my daughter had faced this problem. She never changed her driver's license when she got married 19 years ago, and then went and changed something, and it showed up, and she had to run back and forth to take care of it. When you do not complete the paperwork with the government, you can expect a problem. So, she's complaining that the SAVE Act bill requires Americans to bring all this information. So, if you're thinking, wait, isn't it already illegal for non-citizens to vote? Yes, it is. And you're wondering how often does it actually, it's about as common as flamingos in Wisconsin. That's not true. And more we're picking up, even if it's 0.01%. It's 0.01% too much. If you're not a citizen, you shouldn't have the right to vote. And I say that for states and local, because there's some cities where anyone can vote. Can you imagine elected official? So, and they said 0.0001% of the 23.5 million votes cast across 42 jurisdictions they surveyed had illegal voting. Now, I don't know where they did this, and that was from the Brennan Center for Justice. And that's a 2016 election, which we know all that data could be caca. This legislation is intended to make it more difficult for most eligible American citizens to register and cast their ballot. So, she feels, Miss Brey, B-R-E-Y, of the Milwaukee Sentinel, said that their marriage certificate should be proof enough that they are who they say they are, since to get a marriage certificate, I'd say any place I know of, I could be wrong, in the United States, you need to show a birth certificate to prove age, to prove who you are, and it's just a mandatory requirement. But you must also understand that each government agency requires its own list of what they consider acceptable ID. So the gold standard is a passport, just so you know. And her thing was she didn't even know where her birth certificate was. And her complaint is that most people don't know where their birth certificate are. I'm sorry, I know where my birth certificate is, and if you're not being responsible with your paperwork, I don't have to rescind laws to take care of your non-compliance with what the law requires you to have. So, if you can't find your birth certificate and you had it when you got married, but why is it in a drawer someplace? And they get lost, I understand that. Go and get a new birth certificate. That is not infringing upon your right to vote. Just so you know. Your lack of following the procedures that is set for every one of us, you don't get a special procedure. So, for millions of American women who don't have a passport, they would need to hunt down their birth certificate, marriage license, and ID, and then show up in person just to update their voter registration. Oh, how horrible. How horrible. Oh, the indignity. We all have to do it, sweetheart. You ain't special. And yes, I know where my birth certificate is, and all our important papers are where they're located. It's called being responsible. Because you're a scattered brain, and you just throw things nilly-willy and don't complete tasks. That's not my problem. And it's not the voter registration people either. It's not motor vehicles' problem. Your problem. You're lazy and you don't want to follow the rules. And so you get your panties in a bunch. So she's saying, well, it's ridiculous that I have to go through all that. Yeah. And to blame conservatives that want this. I'm a conservative. It has nothing to do with being a conservative. Because Democrats have to follow this. Republicans have to follow this. Progressives have to follow this. Liberals have to follow this. Communists voting here have to follow it. You want to vote, this is what you got to do. And these are the rules that you play under. All right? And she goes, remember when people told us we were crazy for saying Roe v. Wade could never be overturned? It would never have, that we were being hysterical. Well, Miss Brey, Roe v. Wade was not an amendment. It was a ruling. And yeah, rulings can be overturned, even by the governing bodies that made the original ruling. The Supreme Court has come out and said, sometimes we get it wrong, and we got to make it right. And sometimes we get it right, and we were wrong. That's the way the Supreme Court works, sweetheart. And no one is going to take your 22nd Amendment. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Keep saying 22nd, it's not 22nd. 19th Amendment. Stay correct before all you people start screaming. I will also correct it in my edit. 19th Amendment. No one is changing the 19th Amendment. It would take an act of Congress to change any amendments. And I think in the history of our nation, they've only been changed 17 times. 17 times. All right? Pretty sure on that number. And to amend the Constitution was possible, but it was made very difficult for a reason. The framers of the Constitutions intended to make it difficult to change their document. Not impossible, but difficult. It's been done, but your 19th Amendment, is intact. Then she went on to say, every time I hear someone say, oh, that could never happen here, I think about the photo, the one of the Afghan woman in the 70s wearing a miniskirt and studying medicine before religious fundamentals took over and erased their rights. Hey, sweetheart, we live in America. We're governed under American rule, not Afghan rules, or under the guise of a religious government. All right? Now, if conservatives, and I would say probably half of the conservatives are religious, if that, maybe even lower, 30%. The ones you do hear from might be religious, and you'll hear from them. Just like not every Democrat is saying make all drugs legal, like Hodge, a Hog, that's on the DNC co-chair. All right? Not every Democrat is running out there going, yes, I want all drugs legalized. So, I say to you, honestly, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Uh, so she goes, losing your rights is a slow process. And, you know what's slow? You getting your butt down and getting a new birth certificate so you can follow the law. Get up off your lazy ass and do it. Instead of saying that you're going to be disenfranchised. If you're disenfranchised, it's because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Don't blame the government. Don't blame anyone else. You. Stop being the victim. If you're so empowered and I am woman, do what you're supposed to do. So, now that I said that, I expect my friend Bob in New York, who I think secretly wears a dress. I suspect that. I've never seen it. Unfortunately, I've seen things that I shouldn't have seen with Bob. Yeah, I've seen it. It ain't coming out of my head. So. And she writes a column, My Take, in the Milwaukee Journal's Sentinel. So you could always look her up there. Her take is wrong. My take is right. And it's not a girl guy issue. Facts make me right. All right. And this was an opinion. This was not this was an opinion. I said that from the beginning. It was an opinion. And that's the problem with opinions. Opinions are like assholes. We all got them, and they all stink. Okay. Now that I have totally grossed you out here. A lot of financial stuff going on about gold. Because of President Trump's threatening of tariffs. And he's not threatening anymore, he's doing it. It seems that there's about a $20 per ounce gold difference between London and New York. So when you're buying future trades on gold, the difference is about $20. So banks are losing out. So what banks are doing, some banks, not all banks, they're taking whatever gold asset reserves that they have, because they must have the gold in hand to write futures on. You can't write futures on stuff you don't have. So they're shipping it to New York to hold, so that now the assets are here. They classify the assets as of New York pricing, and they kind of recoup that $20 in any future trades. So why is that happening? Why is that happening? Because of tariffs. Well, because things will be inflation. You can say that there will be a bump up in in the gold prices, and gold usually follows the inflationary trail. So what the market is saying is that they feel that there's going to be inflation. Now, if Trump removes all his tariffs, you would think that gold would go down. And this is very speculative. I'm not an investor. I'm not an expert in it. My bank accounts will attest to that. But it seems to me that some of this is pump and dump. Just saying, that's me. I have no idea, but it seems to me. Um, and as of the other day, gold futures were selling for about $2,950 an ounce. Uh, that price has already gone up 10% in 2 months. And for over a year, the price of gold has gone up 44%. Show me uh, a commodity that has risen like that, that gets traded often and stays. You're not growing it. You're just mining more gold. So you're not growing it. You're not eating it. It does get used in, computers and jewelry and things like that, but that's a very small amount of the gold. So the only thing I can be thinking of, there's two things. Either we're going to go back to a gold standard, which would really be interesting, because then all of the gold that America took in whenever we got off the gold standard in the 30s, FDR made everyone turn in their gold certificates, gold coins, everything had to go back to the government, and they would pay you $28 an ounce. And after the law took effect and you weren't allowed gold anymore except in very rare instances, gold went right up to $32 an ounce. So the government already made a 20% gain. Now you think that gold's been sitting there in, theoretical Fort Knox at $32 or $28 an ounce that they bought it and had it at. And any gold that was confiscated during the wars and stuff, and believe me, plenty of gold was confiscated during wars and taken by the victor. And now that's going to be going for close to $3,000. Well, you don't think that the government wouldn't use some of that gold to pay off our debt and then go on a gold standard and produce more gold and drive the price of that gold down so as to, after we said, well, we'll give you, we owe you $500 million, we're going to give you $500 million in gold. And we give it to them. And then we immediately crash that price down. And what does that do for us? We drove the price up and then crashed it down. So now if we want to borrow on the gold standard, it costs us a lot less. So we could renegotiate debts on that value. It's an interesting concept. I doubt if we could do it and get away, but you see that petrodollars are the big thing. And you can understand why countries like China and Russia holds so much gold, holds more gold than we have, holds more diamonds than we have. Russia has it all. But you can see why they worry about the U.S. and why they want to get off the dollar. But the dollar is the gold standard because we stand behind our dollar. And, we don't manipulate it in the sense of manipulating the dollar. Every country manipulates their money. I don't give a crap what anyone says. But this is going to be interesting how this plays out. I think there's going to be a lot of gold losers. All right. Getting off that was just an interesting little topic I was reading, got sucked into. Mayor Adams, New York City, reported from NBC Universal. A federal judge has canceled the corruption trial against New York City Mayor Eric Adams, but has not dismissed the case yet. Judge Dale Ho adjourned Adams' trial, which was set to begin in April, and appointed an outside lawyer to examine the Justice Department request to drop the case. Now, the judge is saying that, okay, I halted. I'm not, when we canceled the corruption trial, but has not dismissed it. It's legal mumbo jumbo, folks. But what Ho is citing is that the proper vetting to drop a federal case like this had not been done to the judge's knowledge. Now, normally you go through the spectrum of people that have their hands on that case to go through and go, this is why we're dropping it. This is why we're making a request. Now it's a request to drop the case. I would think that when the DOJ tells you to drop the case, you drop the case. But this lawyer was appointed. This judge was appointed by the Biden administration, and he is saying, well, hold it. The vetting to dismiss this case and to then remove it has not been met as far as he's concerned. And he's probably right, but in the end, the Department of Justice is going to win, and this guy probably knows that he's going to be on the losing end here. I did not like how the government went about handling the Eric Adams case from the beginning. It smelled fishy, like they were after him because he, went against Biden. And that was because Biden did not keep his promise to a lot of these cities that they would blanket cover everything because, of course, they couldn't do it. People started asking questions, and those questions then became, out there, and they were legitimate questions. How are you paying for this? We're paying it through FEMA? You can't pay it through FEMA. That's not what FEMA is there for. How are you covering this? And how are you funding it? And they couldn't do it. So Adams, said, hey, we can't foot the bill here. Well, you invited them. So, yeah, you have to foot the bill. Again, there is a procedure that the federal courts normally go through to dismiss a case like this. And it's, a lot of discussion before. But I don't know what maybe Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, and her people have found that would warrant it. Maybe they have evidence that someone inside the administration, not necessarily Biden, but someone inside the administration said, hey, this guy, he went off script. The FBI, keeper of the secrets, knows everything. There are spies everywhere. Your phones, nothing is sacrosanct. So they probably knew already, hey, get him. And normally, they sat on this. They had this information already. He was elected years ago. So this information is not new. They just sat on it. And, the FBI, like I said, they keep it in a drawer. And when you called in there, and if you're that big of a bigwig, and they need something from you, they're going to put it down in front of you and go, hey, because you're going to get this during discovery anyway. This is anything that you're not going to be able to see. So I'm going to put that down in front of you. We're going to get a cup of coffee. Can I get you a cup of coffee? I'm going to be back in the room in 15 minutes. Your lawyer's here with you. A cup of coffee, counselor? Yep. Okay, fine. Why don't you read this? We're going to step back in this room. Boom, boom. You read it? You see what we have. Now, we're ready to go to the next stage. But we know, we got to get our people in line, and we're pretty certain our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. But they might not be. All to where we want to go forward. But I digress. We need something from you. And we need, it's legal. We need you on board with us. And, we might find some problems in this paperwork that this just goes away. Goes back in a drawer. And then eventually into a shredder. And that's how the system works with the FBI, folks. And you don't think so? Then you don't know the real story. Yes, the FBI goes after bank robbers, and they don't make deals with these people like that. But when they're a political figure or people with tentacles that go out, let me tell you, they make deals with them. Because the FBI could never catch these people that are out there without these other people getting them the information they need. And that information comes at a price. One of the shows that I loved watching was The Blacklist. And, but I said, we knew the FBI did this for years. So the Blacklist just, made it ridiculous. They took it to the 10,000th magnification, where it really wasn't, but it made it interesting. But those type of deals exist out there. And Adams coming on board might be one of those deals. Don't know. I'd like to see what the federal government really has on Adams to see, but we don't know. Well, my medicine is wearing off. This cough, this tea only works so long. And I do a lot of talking, which makes this a problem. But I want to thank you. I probably will not do a show this evening. I was thinking about doing that. I definitely will do one tomorrow, just on consolidating the week that I was not here and doing this. We still haven't moved up to Studio B. We have problems with our heating system in the house. I fixed it. And our 5-year warranty expires in March, on March 24th. So we want our installer here on Monday to go through. I'm pretty sure it's a simple problem, but I want them to say what it is and see if it's covered under our warranty. I'm sure it's not, but if it's something big, I can do it. I do know HVAC. But if it's something little like a valve or a sensor or something, I'll throw them there a couple of $100, let them do it, and walk away. But if they tell me, hey, the compressor and it's not covered because, the moon wasn't blue when you called us, and if you look on page 92, you're, all right. Then for a couple of $100, like $500, I got all the brazing equipment. Boom. The only thing I got to call someone back is to recharge the system, and we're done. So I can do all that stuff. My car problems probably is the first time in about, I'd say, 30 years, 40 years, that I had someone actually do my brakes. Uh, I needed the brakes done immediately. They were starting, they got the squeal, and I looked, and it was cold out, and I was sick. And for front brakes, resurfacing, everything else, $300, do it. Because I wasn't going to sit out there in the cold, and I wouldn't have resurfaced the the rotors, and they needed resurfacing. I wouldn't, because I was in a rush, and so they did everything with tax and everything else. Then they flushed out my brake fluid, which I say is a garbage thing, unless you have a problem with your calipers where they get leaky or get water in it. But they do that, and that was all part of the deal, so do it. So between the car and the air conditioner system, the heat pump, and some other things, I just couldn't do the show. I was just not in the mood and didn't have the energy to do it. Well, with that, I'm going to say good night. I'll have this show up at about 5 p.m. today. Between editing and making sure that everything's all right. Hopefully I don't have to redo the show. That's happened 3 times already. Out of the, it's not a good figure. 10%, not a good figure. One time was my mistake. So I'll go down to about 7%. But I don't want to have to do that. And I kind of figured out what I did wrong. I'm going to say good night. Pray. Always pray. Give to charities if you can. Contact those charities. They will not contact you. If they do, good chance that that's not the charity doing that. So go to the charity yourself directly. Don't become a victim helping victims. And God bless everyone. And I'm going to say goodbye for now as I fade to